I've been thinking a lot about this idea of product versus materials. So when this is something I extrapolated from like studying Margiela, but I really experienced it working in architecture. So when you want to build something, when you want to make a piece of clothing or whatever it is you want to do, the basic system of doing it, the institutions, the only like standard way of going about it is buying the materials from different companies. So the materials that we actually use are products themselves. So it's a further level of abstraction or further level of middlemaning between natural resources and the things that we have. So, oh, funny coincidence, I didn't even plan it. This shirt by Ass Pizza is a thrift store shirt, and then he prints on top of that. So this print is like rather expensive, but since he's getting the shirt super inexpensive, I get a much better value product because this is leftover material, this shirt, this thrift store shirt. And how can we apply that mindset of dealing with material rather than product towards building the future? Because especially within architecture, the things that we build are very much defined by the products that we have. So there's standard window sizes, standard colors and finishes, standard, proportions for everything that we deal with. And those proportions end up basically defining the final thing. But the real cost of material is not greater or less than for whatever we want. It's a response to the supply chain and the massive scale of these things. And that's what I think the potential value of locality is that in order for me to buy some sort of t-shirt, some sort of, any product, it's probably going through multiple transactions where the person who actually farms the cotton is selling it to a company that can make the spool of fabric, and then the people who turn the cotton into the spool of fabric, they sell it to a factory, and then that factory makes a deal with someone like Nike to do their products, and then someone like Nike sells it to us at like a fourth or fifth level of abstraction from the original material. So we see now with fashion the start of, like I said, taking already existing, overlooked material and utilizing that instead of product, something that's way deeper in the supply chain, in the logistics chain, because there's one of the things that kills me with architecture is we tear down houses and just put all of that stuff in a landfill. So it's like someone who could figure out a way to reuse that material, reuse that glass, reuse the brick, reuse the wood, find ways to filter it and cure it and modernize it. I think it'll be an extremely profitable field because the physical reality, we have increasingly less people who are specialized in dealing with the real world and way more people who are specialized in dealing with this world. So that's something that this world can't take away. Physical reality will always be here. So you see a lot of people talking about labor jobs or whatever. But I think one of the most valuable and creative things we can do is specialize in understanding how to use material. There was a guy I was talking to, and outside of his house he had a bunch of dry stack rocks. So it's just taking rocks over the years that he literally finds in nature and stacking them up to build a wall. And if you wanted to contract some sort of similar look, it's gonna be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But those rocks are actually free because everything's actually free. And yeah, material versus product. I think in the act of building anything, I think it's really valuable. It can save you a lot of money, save you a lot of time, and get you a better overall final product to have an awareness that there is more options than just what is the market of products around the thing. Like, you can go to a thrift store and get a shirt. So you can go to, like, I don't know, a thrift store and get like a dining table cloth. You know, you can get like a old bed sheet, you know, like the Margiela duvet coat, where they would take those big duvets, like those really puffy bed covers, and turn them into these like beautiful overcoat jackets. And it's like crazy, because so much of what Margiela does and a lot of these brands now do, like, anyone can do that, you know. So the cost, the luxury at that point, if you want like that item, you could pay them like thousands and thousands of dollars, or you could like learn how to sew, or find someone you know who learns how to sew, find the people in your local community who know how to sew, and work with them on making it, and it'll probably cost you like $100, you know. And that's like being very generous to paying someone who sews it. I mean, if you figure out how to sew, you can go to the thrift store and get that stuff for like $5, $6, $7, $6, $7. Product versus material. Like, the layers and layers and layers of regulation and legislation around stuff really protects that supply chain, that product supply chain, but it's not really protecting like the consumer or the employer. It's just a matter of preventing, in my opinion, whether intended or not, the consequences of it are that we no longer have like localized options, you know. So another thing with architecture is it's extremely localized. People should be using local materials. They should be using the native trees and, you know, the native bricks. And that's, I don't know what native bricks means, but native trees is a great example, because using wood from native trees would be more accustomed to the climate, but most of the wood that we use comes from Canada, pretty much. So these really moist and hot summers make it warp more than an indigenous tree would. And that's, you know, it's hard to like extrapolate from that in a sentence, but I think that's a really great example of like, a lot of times the stuff that's right in front of our eyes, that's coming from nature, coming from earth, is really great, really amazing stuff, and we overlook the value of it because there's no marketing, there's no sales for picking up a rock out of the river. There's no like Instagram ads for using the trees around you as like supply material. And I think that natural materials versus, well, all product that we're getting stems from natural material, but recognizing that, you know, natural material can be free, especially if you like own land, you can kind of grow these things on your land. I think there will be a lot of opportunity there in a very secure way as far as AI goes. I don't think anyone's going to be losing, you know, the supply. I don't think AI is going to be like growing trees and making like competitive materials, because you don't make stuff, you only manipulate it. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed and manipulated. So it's like there's a set amount of stuff on the space rock, and then we kind of play games with it for thousands of years, and that's how we have everything that we see around us. So like, one thing that I think is really interesting with overlooked material is it doesn't have to necessarily just be like, you know, a tree. It can be something like that bed sheet, you know, something like a dining room table cover, something like a suit, you know, like suits. I love that example because like everyone pretty much in the entire workforce used to wear suits. Now like almost no one wears suits. So there's all these leftover suits. So it's like, use that as the shoulder pads instead of like, you know, I love the Justin Bieber jackets, but it's like, instead of charging someone like $200 just to have that shoulder look, like just go to the thrift store, pay $5 or $6 for some old suit with the shoulder pads, and then do whatever the heck you want with it. And the materials are oftentimes like really nice compared to something you'd get at like Zara or H&M, which is a great example again of how many layers of abstraction there are, because the stuff at like Zara and H&M is like pretty much like plastic, you know, it's like fake leathers and polyester jeans and stuff like that, and it's like just increasingly becoming way more about that marketing than it is about the actual value of the thing. And that's where we as individual consumers in our own individual lives can, you know, kind of take back some of the leverage, take back some of the control by recognizing our input in this whole thing. You know, if this shirt was $25 and it's like a nice 100% cotton long sleeve, it just is harder for me to go into H&M and pay them $30 for some like polyester crap, you know? And yeah, I think that covers it. Product versus materials. We need to value materials. We can't overlook the value of materials just because it isn't marketed to us as product. We should not overlook the value of materials just because it isn't marketed to us as a product. We can produce love.